These movies were supposed to be failures. They lost millions, critics hated them, studios were embarrassed enough to bury them quietly and move on. By every box office rule, they should have been forgotten forever. Instead, something strange happened. Decades later, these so-called flops are still shaping Hollywood, while billion-dollar hits from today vanish in weeks. One movie on this list didn't just fail, it permanently changed how Hollywood makes films. And it all started in the 1980s. Number 10, The Black Cauldron, 1985.
You better be telling the truth.
Cookie not lie.
No, you can't!
Disney almost killed their entire animation department because of this movie. It took them a decade to recover from the damage. This was supposed to be Disney's big fantasy epic, most expensive animated film ever made at that time. It made only $21 million back. Catastrophic loss. Disney looked at this dark fantasy and said, "Let us traumatize children." Families looked at the marketing and said, "No thanks." The movie was too dark for kids and too animated for adults. Marketed to absolutely nobody. But here's what matters. This failure forced Disney to completely reinvent their approach to animation. The disaster led directly to The Little Mermaid and the entire Disney Renaissance. Without this bomb, there is no Lion King, no Aladdin, no modern Disney. Now it is considered an underrated cult classic. Disney's near-death experience changed animation forever. But the next movie changed how Hollywood creates dragons entirely. Number 9, Dragon Slayer, 1981.
Dragon, fire and stench. It is evil.
A movie that flopped so hard in theaters went on to influence Game of Thrones and every fantasy film made since. Disney and Paramount teamed up for this dark medieval fantasy. It made only $14 million back. Solid loss for two major studios combined. Here is the embarrassing part. Two studios together could not sell a dragon movie to audiences who literally wanted dragons. The film was too scary for families and not action-packed enough for adults. But then something incredible happened. George R.R. Martin called this his favorite dragon ever put on film. Guillermo del Toro studied it obsessively for his creature work. The practical effects set standards that lasted decades. Those effects still hold up better than most CGI garbage today. One dragon changed fantasy filmmaking forever. But the next movie tried something even crazier. 3 different endings shown in 3 different theaters at the same time. Number 8, Clue, 1985.
Very pretty.
A movie based on a board game that was so ahead of its time, Hollywood is still copying its format today. Made only $14.6 million back. Barely a loss, but still considered a failure. Here was the gimmick that killed it. 3 different endings shown in different theaters. Audiences had to visit multiple times to see them all. Marketing said, "See it again for a different ending." Audiences said, "We did not even see it once." The concept confused everyone in 1985. Nobody understood what the studio was trying to do. But that gimmick pioneered interactive storytelling and multiple ending narratives. Every video game with multiple endings owes this film. Streaming eventually made it a beloved cult classic, endlessly quotable. The concept that killed it in 1985 would make it a massive hit today. Multiple endings were too wild for the 80s, but the next movie created something even wilder. An immortal warrior franchise that refuses to die. Number 7, Highlander, 1986.
If it came down to just us two.
A movie about immortals that flopped at the box office but literally became immortal itself. Made only $13 million back. Significant loss that should have ended everything. The premise was wild. Immortal warriors fighting through centuries with swords. There can be only one. The studio had Christopher Lambert swinging a blade and Queen doing the entire soundtrack. Still could not sell tickets. Too weird for mainstream audiences, too action-packed for art house crowds. Nobody knew where to put it. But then it refused to die. Spawned multiple sequels, a television series with Adrian Paul that ran for years, animated shows, video games, novels, an entire multimedia empire built from one flop. The immortal warrior mythology influenced countless films and shows since. Hollywood keeps trying to reboot it because they cannot let it go. One immortal franchise is impressive, but the next movie created a puppet empire that David Bowie himself could not save at the box office. Number 6, Labyrinth, 1986.
Behind you.
Jim Henson and David Bowie made a fantasy masterpiece together. and audiences completely ignored it. Massive investment for a puppet fantasy film in 1986. Made only $12.7 million at the domestic box office. Significant loss that hurt everyone involved. This was the ultimate dream team. Jim Henson directing, George Lucas producing, David Bowie in extremely tight pants singing to a baby. They had literally everything. Puppets, music, star power, weirdness, $25 million worth of creativity, and still could not fill seats. The movie released during a summer packed with bigger blockbusters. Marketing could not explain the weirdness to normal humans. The failure devastated Jim Henson, who poured his entire heart into this project. But that heartbreak created something eternal. The film influenced fantasy filmmaking and creature work for decades. Labyrinth became one of the most beloved cult films ever made. Henson's fantasy gem got ignored in 1986, but the next movie got rejected for being too dark, then changed teen movies forever. Number 5. Heathers, 1988. A teen movie so dark and violent that studios were terrified to release it. Now it is considered the blueprint for every edgy teen film ever made. Made approximately $1 million back. Complete disaster on paper. The premise was absolutely unhinged for 1988. Dark satire about teen suicide and high school murder. Marketed as a comedy somehow. In an era of wholesome John Hughes films, someone said, "Let us make teenagers terrifying." Audiences ran away screaming. Way too dark for mainstream 1988. Nobody knew how to sell murder comedy to parents. But this failure revolutionized teen movies entirely. It proved darkness could work with young audiences. Mean Girls exists because of this. Jennifer's Body exists because of this. Every dark teen comedy traces back here. It became a Broadway musical decades later. Peak cult status achieved. Heathers changed teen movies forever. But the next film changed how Hollywood mixes action with comedy and nearly ended John Carpenter's career. Number 4. Big Trouble in Little China, 1986. John Carpenter made the perfect action comedy and studios buried it completely. Now every Marvel movie copies his formula without giving credit. Made only $11.2 million domestic. Major flop that hurt badly. Kurt Russell played a clueless trucker fighting ancient Chinese magic in San Francisco. Carpenter delivered exactly what he promised. Fox looked at it and said, "We have no idea what this even is." The film competed against Aliens that summer. Studio had zero clue how to market the weird tone. The failure made Carpenter leave studio filmmaking entirely. He was done with Hollywood nonsense. But his vision influenced action-comedy hybrids for decades. Marvel's humor and action approach owes everything to this film. Asian mythology and mainstream cinema started here. Dwayne Johnson has been trying to remake it for years. Carpenter's comedy masterpiece got buried, but his other 1980s bomb destroyed even harder. Then became the gold standard for horror. Number 3, Heaven's Gate, 1980. One movie was so disastrous it literally ended an entire era of Hollywood filmmaking. This is not an exaggeration. Made only $3.5 million back. Loss of over $40 million. Director Michael Cimino had complete creative control after winning Oscars for The Deer Hunter. He went massively over budget. Shot over 1 million feet of film. Made the studio wait and wait and wait. Cimino basically said, "Trust me," and then bankrupted United Artists entirely. The studio collapsed because of one film. Here is why this matters for cinema history. This single movie ended the director-driven era of the 1970s completely. Studios took back control from directors throughout the 80s and 90s. Modern Hollywood's executive-controlled system exists because of this flop. One bomb changed Hollywood's entire power structure forever. But the next film changed horror and practical effects forever, while competing against a friendly alien nobody could beat. Number 2, The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter's greatest masterpiece was considered a disgusting failure. Because audiences wanted cute aliens instead of terrifying ones, made $19.6 million back, technically profit, but considered a massive disappointment. Here is what killed it. The Thing released 2 weeks after E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Audiences wanted heartwarming alien friendship. Carpenter gave them the most terrifying, shape-shifting nightmare ever filmed. People said, "But E.T. is so cute though." Critics called the film excessive and disgusting. Too nihilistic for summer audiences, apparently. Reviews were brutal, and Carpenter was emotionally crushed by the response. But time revealed the truth. The Thing became the gold standard for practical effects in horror. Body horror and paranoia-driven sci-fi all trace back here. Now it is considered one of the greatest horror films ever made. Carpenter's horror classic eventually got justice. But on number 1 defined an entire genre, and waited 35 years for a sequel to prove everyone wrong. Number 1, Blade Runner, 1982. The movie that invented an entire genre was booed by audiences and called boring by critics. Now it is considered one of the most important films ever made. Made $41 million worldwide. Disappointing returns that worried everyone. Critics were confused. Audiences were bored. The studio panicked and forced a happy ending that made absolutely no sense. Harrison Ford delivered philosophical sci-fi poetry. Audiences said, "Where is Han Solo shooting stuff?" The film was too slow for action fans and too weird for mainstream viewers. Studio interference ruined the theatrical cut completely, but none of that mattered in the end. Blade Runner defined the cyberpunk aesthetic that influences everything today. Every sci-fi film since owes a visual debt to this movie. A sequel arrived 35 years later. The director's cut became legendary. Ultimate proof that vision matters more than opening weekend numbers. These 10 bombs lost hundreds of millions combined in the 1980s. Today they are taught in film schools and copied by billion-dollar franchises. Modern blockbusters make money and get forgotten instantly. These flops became immortal instead. The 1980s understood something Hollywood forgot. Great films need time to find their audience. Your favorite modern movie probably stole from these failures. Like and subscribe if the 80s did cinema better.